You have it? Okay. All right. I think we're all set. Hopefully folks can hear us online. Maybe give us a thumbs up for folks online.
Everybody's muted.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me online?
There's one thumbs up.
Oh, you see a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. All right. Hello, everyone. So we have, wow, like close to 20 or 25 people in person, and then looks like 13 online. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on this chilly evening to learn about, well, radon and septic. So my name is Jennifer Cook. I work for Gilpin County CSU Extension. And also presenting tonight, do you guys want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. My name is Marie Larson. I'm the community health specialist with public health. Work over in the building with Elisa. It's just us two.
Yeah. And I'm Elisa Witt. I'm the director of public health for Gilpin County. And again, thank you for coming. There's plenty of food. Don't be shy. Get up anytime and get more. So I don't have to take it home. Thanks.
Yeah, folks that are here in person, feel free to get up and use the bathroom or whatever you need to do. We can keep it pretty informal here.
Yep.
Great. And I'd also like to thank Gilpin Public Library for hosting us tonight and providing all the technology to make this hybrid presentation possible. Okay, so I think we're going to get started with radon first, and then we'll go from there. So let me pull up my slides. Okay, cool. Looks good. All right, so how does it look online? Thumbs up? Oh, Michael says thumbs up. Okay, good. All right, so first we'll talk about radon tonight. Oh no, now it's not moving slides.
Do you have it on slideshow?
Yeah. Hold on a minute, everyone. I'm gonna stop this and try again. Sorry. All right, does that look okay still? Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So Marie and I are going to talk about radon tonight. Some of the key points about radon is that it is a potential concern here in Gilpin County. It's easy to test for though, and all homes can be mitigated for not very much money wise. So even though it is a concern, it's easily fixable. So what is radon and why are we concerned about it? I guess we could maybe start there. With high levels of radon accumulation, it can cause a potential for lung cancer. So what is radon and why do we even care? How does it get here? So radon is an inert gas. We can't smell it or see it, but it's probably in the air right now. It is caused, you can look at the picture and you can see it's caused by our geology, basically. Our ground rock is made up of uranium, and that breaks down over time into radium, and then radium decays into radon. And radon, so basically radon isn't really combining with anything else. It's just there in the air floating around. If we're outside, it's usually not a problem because it doesn't really accumulate, but it's when we're in buildings that it tends to accumulate and creates higher levels that we're exposed to. Another key point is that it's naturally occurring, so it's not caused by like a landfill or because there was mining here. It's nothing to do with that. It's just totally naturally occurring. So long-term exposure can cause or increase our chance of lung cancer. So outside of smoking cigarettes, it's the #2 cause of lung cancer, which is pretty interesting. And it's also concerned because when we're buying and selling homes, buyers might be concerned about high radon levels. And in fact, more recently, I think now in Colorado, it's required to be tested. So when you're buying and selling a home, it's part of the process now, um, uh, just like telling that you have lead or saying that you have lead or that you know of any hazardous chemicals on your property, you have to, I don't know what the word is. Disclose. Thank you. I was trying to work that word out. Yes, you have to disclose. Okay, so what is an acceptable level? 4 picocuries per liter is kind of like the remediation level and the level that's acceptable. However, the interesting thing is this 4 picocuries per liter is a number that was determined in 1980 by the Environmental Protection Agency as a number that could be easily mitigated to at an economical price. So a level 4 picocuries per liter, you couldn't really say that that's a safe level. You could say that that's the EPA recommended level. So still, there is some potential health hazard whenever you're living in a home that has 4 picocuries per liter. But that's kind of like the mitigation level, the remediation level that we're shooting for. But people could want lower levels, maybe 2. The World Health Organization recommended level is 2.7 picocuries per liter. You could never get down to 0. That's not an attainable number in a home because normally there's estimated like 0.4 picocuries per liter, just kind of in general in the air.
Jennifer, are you still admitting?
What's that?
Are you still admitting people?
I think Nancy should.
Yeah,
be.
Nancy is doing it.
You got kicked out? Oh no. Yeah. The internet's been a little bit on and off tonight, so hopefully we'll see how things go. Okay, so this is a map of the United States. The red are the areas that they're considered zone 1, where an average of 50% or more of the homes have 4 picocuries per liter or higher. So you can see there's a lot of states in the United States that have generally high levels. Zooming into Colorado and Gilpin County, we're all red because of our geology here, unfortunately. But it's interesting because there could be like one home in a neighborhood could have, 3 picocuries per liter, and then the home right next to it could have 150 picocuries per liter. It's really hard to predict. So that's why we recommend that everyone just test their home. And Marie's going to talk more about testing in a few minutes. Okay, so how does it get into our home anyway? So this picture is showing, so our homes are kind of like a vacuum. And as warm air rises, the cool air is replacing the warm air, and the air has to come from somewhere. And typically in homes, it's coming from where the green areas are coming from the base of the house, the soil underneath the house. So if there's radon underneath the house in the soil, it's going to be pulled up into your home just naturally through the vacuum that our homes create. So that's how it's kind of getting into the home, and it's, accumulating. So numbers tend to be higher in the winter because all of our doors and windows are closed. So less air is replacing itself on a regular basis. So that's why we recommend testing in the winter, because that's whenever it's the highest potential. So we want to know like the highest number that we're being exposed to throughout the year. Okay. And so this graph is showing, so in this home, they're testing both the amount of vacuum, the yellow line, and then the red line is the level of radon. So you can see that they're all kind of, even though one's higher than the other, they're moving at the same direction up and down. And then the drop that happens is when the exhaust fan turns on or the windows come open. And so all of a sudden the vacuum goes down and there's more air being replaced. So the radon reduces. So that's just another way of thinking about how the radon is, the levels are going up and down based on how much air is moving through the house. So, I guess another thing to think about is when you are testing your radon, if you want to get the highest level possible, keep your windows and doors closed except for coming in and out of the house. And those instructions are included in the radon test. Radon can be elevated in any home. It doesn't matter if it's old or new construction. It can be an office building, a school, an apartment, any kind of homes, whether it has a basement or not, it doesn't matter. It may or may not have high radon. So it's just worth testing. The only type of homes that won't have high radon are tree houses and boat houses. Is yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll be talking a little bit more about the testing process and how to test your home for radon. So, like Jen was saying, you want to test in closed home conditions. So, you want to keep your windows and your doors as closed as possible. You hear that you want to test in winter, typically because that's when it's easiest to have your doors and windows closed. Not because you need to test in the winter, but it's kind of more compatible with how you use your home. You can test in the summer, absolutely, or in the spring if you want. Just make sure that your AC is turned to a setting that it's not allowing exchange of air from indoor to outdoor, and just trying to keep your windows and doors closed as much as possible. When you're testing with the short-term test, you do want to make sure that all your conditions are closed for 12 hours before you start the test. That's really important, just to make sure that air is kind of sitting where it needs to. And then the short-term tests, which are they're the most inexpensive, they're the easiest to get your hands on. We have them for free. You can pick one up at our office, or you can order one online. Those are 2 to 7 days, so they're pretty quick turnaround time. And then if your radon is less than 4 picocuries per liter in the lower level, you can kind of assume that the rest of your house is pretty safe. So if your levels are low in the place in the house that it's going to be the highest, typically, the rest of your house is pretty safe. But if you get a test back and it's above 4 in those higher levels, then it's safe to assume that you're being exposed to radon in the rest of your house as well. Yeah, so with closed home conditions, basic entry and exit, you can still live in your house as normal. Just really try to keep things locked down. Internal, external air exchange systems are completely off for the duration of the test. So again, starting that 12 hours before you start the test, and then for as long as you do the test. So that's between 2 and 7 days, keep everything closed down. And then any other existing systems you already have. So if you're testing to see if your system is working properly, make sure that you keep your system on while you're testing to make sure that you get your most accurate results. So your test location is probably the most important part of your radon test. You want to, like Jen was saying, do it in the lowest level of your house. So if you have a basement, do it in your basement. That's great, even if you don't live full-time in your basement. As long as you occupy it to a certain degree, good place to test. You want to keep it away from drafts and moisture. Along those same lines, keep it out of a kitchen or a bathroom or a laundry room. Anywhere that your radon test might get wet or exposed to a lot of humidity, that can impact your results, and then you have to kind of start all over, unfortunately. Keep it away from direct sunlight, so don't put it directly in a window or anywhere that gets really hot or cold. Keep it away from like a metal surface. You don't want to put it right on a windowsill. So I like to think of it as like taking the test and putting it in a place where it can breathe, where it has some air and some room for air circulation around it. Along the same lines, you do want to avoid putting it in like a closet, for example, or a storage unit or a garage. Sometimes people put them in crawl spaces. but you're not living in your crawl space, so you don't really want to test a place that you're not actually occupying. So bedroom, living room, best places to test in your basement or in your lowest level. So once you're actually in the room, once you've figured out where the lowest place in your house is, you want to figure out where in the room to put it. So when I did my test, we put it on like the arm of a couch. That worked pretty well. You want to keep it at least 3 feet away from windows and exterior doors, 12 feet away from interior walls. So if you have it on a bookshelf, can be a really good option, but you want to make sure it's not like pushed right up against the back wall of a bookshelf, because again, you want that air circulation. 4 inches away from other objects. That's pretty much any object. So big objects, little objects, you kind of want them again to have space. And then you also want to put it where it's not going to get touched. So this can be kind of tricky, especially if you're, you have kids and stuff that might be curious to, touching your radon test. But it's really important that once it's out of the package and it's on wherever it's going to be, it doesn't move for the duration of the test. Again, it's really important to keep it from getting wet, keep it from getting too hot, keep it from direct sunlight. And then you also want to make sure it's at least 20 inches off of the ground. So about this level is good. Between 2 and 5 feet is ideal. So you have some room there. So let's say you get your test results back and they're a little bit high. What do you do? Or what if they're a little bit low? What if they're around 2? So the thing with radon is there is no safe level. As Jen was kind of saying, that 4 picocuries per liter per liter of air is kind of an economic guideline. That's an action level that was created because that's kind of the point where it makes a lot of sense to mitigate for the cost of it, the risk versus the cost. But even if your results come back between 2 and 4, you can typically get it lower. So there is no safe level of radon. You can get lung cancer if your radon levels are at 2. So if you have a result that comes back in that 2 to 4 range or around 4, it's definitely worth talking to a contractor and thinking about mitigation or exploring some of your options. And then with the short-term tests, they are great because they're efficient and they're easy to access, but they can be variable. So the short-term tests, the point is really to give you kind of an idea of what you might be being exposed to. So it's not going to give you an exact reading. That we can talk about long-term tests, but it's kind of just giving you a, hey, you have radon, here's where it might be. It's probably worth mitigating, or maybe it's really low and it's not. So these are the long-term tests. I brought one here too. You can see they're a little bit smaller than the short-term tests here. This one in this picture up here, hanging from the ceiling. I've actually never seen one of those.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Good. Okay, so the long-term tests, they're placed for 91 to 365 days. So anywhere in that window. So you put it there, pretty much leave it. You kind of got to set a timer to make sure you don't forget about it completely. And those will give you a better picture of radon conditions in your home over time with a more typical environment. So with the long-term tests, if you decide to do one of those, you don't have to close down your house like you do with a short-term test. So the idea is to really continue business as usual. Keep your doors open and closed as you normally would. You'll have it through all 4 seasons, so it'll give you a picture of what your radon is looking like over up to that year period. And then again, if the result is equal to or greater than 4, mitigation is absolutely recommended. But even if it's lower than that 4 level, it could be worth it. It could be worth a conversation. Okay, these are some pictures of examples of radon mitigation systems. I'm not going to get too into the nitty-gritty of them. Basically, what you need to know about mitigation is it really depends on your house. So people always ask, oh, how much does it cost? How long does it take? It depends. So if you have a big house with a giant foundation and lots of additions, your system's going to be very different than if you have, a 2-room cabin. But on average, a mitigation system is between $1,500 and $3,000. So, you know, they can get a little pricier, but for your health, I think it is worth the investment. Usually a contractor can come up. Sometimes it's just one of them. They can do it on their own and they can be in and out in a day. Sometimes, depending on when you call them, they might come up and look at your house, look at your foundation, what they need to do, and then they'll come back at a later time. That happens sometimes when you call in the winter and there's 3 feet of snow and they can't get to your house and they have to come back in 6 months. But yeah, it's usually a pretty easy system. So some considerations with mitigation, again, it's really dependent on your house. Usually the fans, people worry about noise sometimes. The fans are, from what I've heard from people, very quiet. They don't cause a lot of disruption. They don't look too terrible, I don't think. They don't use a whole lot of energy. I think it's like 90 watts per fan typically. So the cost of the energy to run the fans is pretty minimal. Now you can get more expensive mitigation systems if you want them to look more aesthetic to fit your house. That's always an option. So with this one here, you can see that's the pipe that the fan is actually blowing the radon up and out above the roof, about 12 inches above the roof. They typically sit. But the fans, so in this little box here, they have a fan. And the fans are rated to be outside, so they don't need to be in a box like that. But that person just decided to make it look a little nicer and put a cover over their fan. You can paint them, you can, you know, make them really fit into your house. So you can, I don't even know if you can see it. You can kind of see it. So this pipe here, this big one, that's their their radon mitigation system for this house. You can see the fan is down in here, and then that pumps all of the radon up and out and above the house to where it's not going to impact anybody. But you can see they painted this one. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, really wouldn't notice that if you weren't looking for it. And then some final considerations when thinking about radon contractors. So in Colorado, we're actually pretty lucky. As of, I think, July 2022, all radon mitigation contractors in Colorado are required to be licensed. So they have to provide guaranteed pricing, and they also have to have insurance and do trainings, amongst other things. It was something that was put into place to protect consumers from people who might not be doing the best work out there, because there's a high demand for radon contractors and the state wants to make sure they're all doing it correctly. So most contractors will provide guarantees and long-term warranties to less than 4 picocuries per liter. Again, usually you can get it down lower. One thing to know if you're working with a contractor, a lot of times they will do a test after the system is installed, and it should come out, you know, pretty low. It's good to do your own, and it's good to do your own every year too. So even if they guarantee their system and even if they do their own tests, it's always, always good to do your own, just to make sure. Yeah. And that's it. I think we have QR codes back there. You can order your own tests. We have these for free. I'll have you order them online with the QR code, or you can give me your name and number and I'll buy you one. I'll order one for your house, but you can get up to 2 of these for free on our website and they'll ship to your house. And then these are nice because I get the results as well. So when these come back, if they come back high, I'll give you a phone call, I'll send you an email, I'll send you a list of contractors, and we can work through it from there. But yeah, that's it.
Any questions on radon?
Is there stuff you would do at the beginning as you're building a home to reduce, you know, like seal the basement better, things like that, if you're in new construction mode?
Yes, the answer is yes. So a lot of contractors are aware of the radon problem in Colorado. And so many homes are being built with that consideration in mind. Some states have passed laws where that's a requirement. If there's high radon in an area, that they have to be radon mitigated at the time of construction. Colorado's not there yet, but definitely there are things that can be put in place to have a system already in place at the time the home is built. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then the other thing I just wanted to add is that to be a certified radon contractor in Colorado, they are required to do pre and post tests. So they don't get paid unless they bring your level down. So that's part of being a certified radon contractor. They have to test afterwards and prove that they got it below that 4 picocuries.
Can you tell us about the financial?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that or?
Sure. Yeah, if I miss anything, fill
Yeah,
it in.
no, I have to do both water and septic, so you go ahead.
The state actually has a program, it's called LRMA, it's the Low Income Radon Mitigation Assistance Program. And depending on, I would have to check again, but I think for 2 people, a household of 2 in Colorado, you can qualify for a free system if your income's below 75.
I haven't looked in a
I
while.
believe 75 or 76, it's right around there. Which, it's up there, but I think a lot of people surpass that limit. But yeah.
It's lower if you have a family, so
It's lower if you have a
based on
family.
the number of people in your family. And the nice thing about that, if you qualify for that, and there's a lot of paperwork to go through to qualify, but many people have qualified. And what happens then is the state hires the contractor and pays the contractor directly if you qualify for that LRMA program. So it's really a nice program.
Yeah, you really don't have to do much at all.
Where do you find that at?
That would be online at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's website.
We have flyers too, I
Yeah,
think.
and there's flyers in the back of the room. You brought them on Lerma?
I did.
Great. They're right there on the table.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. The application is a little hefty, but it's free, so.
You said below 4, like if you got 150 or, will that rate, will that fan bring that down? Just that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
actually,
It could be more than one fan. It
Right.
depends. Yeah, so, yeah, it really depends on the structure of your home. So, but these certified contractors, that's what they're trained to do. And they will look at the airflow. They test airflow, where the right place to put the fan is. And if one fan doesn't work, they'll have to put another one in.
and a lot of times it's interesting because the soil composition, if you have really high radon, that typically means that the soil underneath your house is really permeable. And actually, that can make it easier to bring the levels down a lot quicker because that permeability of the soil allows the fans to be more efficient. And so it can be easier to bring it down when it's really high.
Nancy?
Yeah.
Question from the chat. Kim is asking, is there any maintenance that needs to be done on the irrigation system? It seems like she has a system that was installed present in the house when they bought their house 8 years.
I would say test.
Yeah, I was gonna
Make
say, I think, I got mine and I thought they said it had a 10-year, like, at least a 10-year life, but I still test every year to make sure. And it's not a bad idea if you do get a test that's seems a little bit high or higher than 4, to have the contractors come out and just take a look. In fact, I think I just did that. I asked them to come out and take a look because I think in our crawl space, it looked like some of they have to put plastic down to sort of create a vacuum to pull from for the fan to pull from. And some of the plastic was pulled up from probably rodents or whatever. So I had them come and they actually checked it and fixed it for free. So they should guarantee their work. So I would, yeah, keep testing. And if you need to, call the contractor to come out. And we have a list of, there's about 4 or 5 contractors who come up and work in Gilpin County. So we have that list online, but folks can just email public health or extension and we'll get you those lists if you're not in person today. Another question online?
A comment from the chat. Kelly is saying, I just tried to order a test with the QR code and it came back with no tests are available. They're not sure when they will be available again. And it sounds like Patrick tried as well and had the same result.
I wonder, we have to pre-purchase. I wonder if we have to go in and purchase some more.
Did they go on because I just ordered 150 more for our website. Is it different through the extension?
No, it should be all the same.
Yeah, it's all through the same contractor. So the answer to that question is just please send an email to mlarson@gilpincounty.org and she will follow up and make sure they get their tests. Because we have a grant and there are plenty of them. Just might be a problem with the vendor.
Yeah, they
Not
might
keeping
not
up.
have gotten them on there yet.
Yeah.
So we definitely have them available, but it's a matter of if they put them up there or not yet.
Marie will follow up is the answer.
Yes. Thank you for letting us know too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Any other questions on radon? All right. So next is Elisa Witt from Public Health, and she'll talk about wells and then move into septic and
Yeah.
slide.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Go.
Just do the arrow?
Yeah.
All right. So, almost everybody in Gilpin County is on a private well unless you live in Black Hawk or Central City proper. In Colorado, wells are not regulated to the point where they're required to have annual testing. Like in some other states in the United States, they require homeowners, even with private wells, to test their well every year. In Colorado, you're on your own with your private well. So that's why we're doing this education, to make sure you understand that nobody else is looking out for the quality of your water but you when you own a private well. And public health is here to help you with that. So wells in Colorado, especially in Gilpin County, are a little bit different than in some other geologies. We don't have a solid flat water table like they do in a lot of other places. And there's a very interesting little diagram, or I don't know what you call it, diorama back there that shows you kind of how water flows here in Gilpin County. And it is not impossible. In fact, it's often that, I won't say how often, but it's very possible that your well water could become contaminated and it could change over time. So just because you have good well water right now doesn't mean you will always have good well water, which is why the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment and the EPA all recommend annual well water testing. So things can get into your well, casing, pesticides, herbicides. There could be all kinds of contaminants, especially if there's been any construction near your home, any earth moving or changes near your property. If you've done any construction, those are really good times to get your well water retested. If you've never had it tested, you should definitely get a baseline test. When my husband and I moved to Colorado 10 years ago, that's one of the first things we did. We had never had a private well before. We moved from Metro Chicago area, and we took our well and our well water, and we highly recommend this as a baseline to the state lab where they can test for heavy metals, all kinds of contaminants. So most groundwater in the United States is good to drink, but just because your neighbor has a good well doesn't mean your well is going to be the same. It's just the same thing as radon. Because we live on fractured rock and water flows all different directions, there's no way to predict from one lot to the other, even close by. Like I live in Colorado Sierra, and our neighbors across the street, they don't have good well water, they buy water, and our well water is good. We got lucky when we bought our house. So testing is really important. You also want to reduce the risk for yourself and your family of having your well water become contaminated. So definitely you want to think about regularly inspecting things that could cause problems for your well. Your well head, hopefully you should know where that is on your property and not have anything around there. Any chemicals especially, make sure that it's secure. Make sure, again, especially the biggest thing to worry about is if there's been any earth moving around that can change the structure or the integrity of the wellhead or the casings and things like that. We have a couple of good contractors up here in Gilpin County. I would recommend a well professional if you're concerned about anything like that. And really just keep anything away from the general area of your well. Hopefully, not a lot of us up here are doing chem lawn or have lawns and things like that. So we're not like pesticides and herbicides, hopefully up here. But just know that the well could become contaminated if you're not careful of what is around it, especially around the wellhead. There have been some wells in Gilpin County, especially many, many years ago, that were not dug to the proper depth. So that sometimes when we get water tests in our office here, when we ask the person what happened, if their well became contaminated, we find out from records that that well was only 75 feet deep. The deeper the well, the better the chances that that's not going to become contaminated and that the water is going to be clean and pure. So definitely think about well maintenance and having your well checked out if you've never done that. So there are different kinds of bacteria that can get in wells, which is why Gilpin County Public Health has a state certified water lab. Not many public health departments do in Colorado, but we do because of the high propensity of wells in our county. And we can test for the most common contaminants. So the most common contaminants in wells would be total coliform bacteria and E. coli. And we can test for both of those in our office. The test doesn't quantify how much bacteria is in there, but it can tell you presence or absence. And it's pretty reliable. And then we recently added nitrites and nitrate testing, again, presence or absence. And that can also be a contaminant, especially from a septic system or from animal waste. That's where nitrates and nitrates come from. And actually that's where E. coli can also come from, is human or animal waste. So it's not a huge threat to human health if you do have total coliform in your well. We do get quite a few samples every year that have that. What we'll recommend is that you get further testing to find out why. Because if there's total coliform in your well, that means there could be other contaminants as well. Something has gotten into the water, and that means other things could be in there too, such as heavy metals, which we don't test for, and other contaminants. E. coli, that's a major problem. If you have E. coli in your well, you should immediately not use that water, not for drinking, not for bathing, not for anything, until you get your well water fixed. And it can be fixed usually, but if we get a sample, and in the 3 years I've been doing well water testing here in Gilpin County, probably had 4 or 5 test positive for E. coli. And that's an immediate phone call. You will hear from us right away, and we will tell you, please don't drink or use your water anymore until you have a well professional look at your well and figure out what's going on there and what needs to be fixed. Total coliform, we don't get that many positives, but we do get them. We get that more often than E. coli. And nitrates and nitrates, we haven't had very many. We just started testing recently. Have you had many positive?
I think about 3.
3 out of
Year.
maybe 100. Yeah. We would love more of our residents to test their well water. That's one of the reasons we're doing the presentation tonight. It is super important, especially if you have infants, young children. You want to make sure you have water that's free from any contaminants. We do, I would say, about 140 to 150 tests a year. When you think about how many private wells there are in Gilpin County, maybe people are getting their water tested other places, but I think there's a lot of people not testing their well water in Gilpin County. So help us spread the word. It's very important to test your well. Like I said, well water, when you first, start using it, like if you buy a home, I would do that immediately, get sort of a baseline test, make sure you have clean water, and then annually after that, every year. If there's been, again, same thing, construction or major, like, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago when we had that almost 7 feet of snow, a lot of snow melt can inundate and change the structure, that's going into your well. Might be another good time. If there's some kind of weather event, major thing, something unusual, good time to test your well water again. If you notice any changes in your water, great time to get it tested. Not all changes are dangerous, but you don't know what's in there just because of the color or the smell. You're not sure what's causing that unless you get the water tested. So We have, to get your water tested at our office, we accept samples Monday through Wednesday. It takes 24 hours to get the results. So that's why we don't test on Thursdays, because we're closed on Fridays. So Monday through Wednesday, we accept water samples between 7:30 and 5:30. And it's very, very important to follow the directions. These are the directions. I'm not going to go through them, but if you don't do the test correctly, you're not going to get the correct results. So the bottle that you put your well water in is a sterile bottle, which means that when you remove the lid, you don't want to touch the inside of the cap with your fingers. You don't want to lay it capside down onto a table where it can pick up bacteria. You want to know that that's a sterile sample, and you want to follow the directions exactly. So take the water sample from a non-aerated faucet if you have one. If you don't have a non-aerated faucet, then you have to use the faucet that you can. But I do recommend not using a kitchen sink faucet, because that's a lot of just bacteria from washing dishes and contaminants and things like that. The absolute best place would be a bathtub faucet. Let that water run for a good 2 to 3 minutes, because you don't want the water that's been sitting in your pipes for a long time. You want to get it from your well and have it flush through, and only the cold water. And then again, you want to make sure you don't contaminate the sample yourself. We've had people, for whatever reason, not read the directions and take their water directly from the wellhead, and that's outside, and there's all kinds of bacteria. You want to know what is the water that you're drinking that's gone all the way from your well through your faucet into your house, not from your wellhead. You're not drinking that water there. And those are going to be highly contaminated samples. So, the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment has a much more extensive water lab than we have, and they can test actual amounts of the bacteria, not just presence or absence. And then you can also test for the most common contaminants here in Colorado, which could be heavy metals, lead, arsenic, other metals that just are natural in the environment here. So they have, what I always recommend, they have something, if you go online on the state health department, it's called the General Colorado Package. And it's about $107 last time I looked. And they will mail you free of charge a bunch of different sample bottles, because you have to do a couple different bottles to get all the testing done. But you do have to drive it down there within 24 hours. So if you do have bacteria in your well, as I said before, it's very important not to drink the water if there's E. coli. Technically, you can drink water with total coliform, but it's not going to taste good, and it's not going to look good. It's not going to cause immediate illness or disease or anything like that, but I definitely wouldn't give it to an infant or a young child. I personally wouldn't drink it at all, but it's technically total coliform. It's not a threat to human health, but it does mean you need to get more testing of your water. So that's why this says you could use it for bathing, you could use it for cooking, and you can drink it. It doesn't taste good though, so you probably wouldn't want to drink it. So the idea is, pay attention to the look, taste, and smell of your water, and if anything changes, get it tested. So you can shock your well. We do have some instructions. There's a handout there. So if it's just total coliform and you want to try to fix it on your own without calling a professional, I would personally call a professional, but we have had residents who've had total coliform who shocked their own well with chlorine bleach, and there are instructions for that. And then of course you'd want to have it retested to make sure it worked. And well professionals know how to do that as well. And that is the treatment for getting the bacteria out of the well, is to shock the well. But they also, of course, need to identify what the source of the bacteria was, because it'll just come back. Shocking won't be a permanent solution if you've got problems with your well.
What are you shocking with? Chlorine?
Chlorine bleach, yep. And there's a whole formula for how it's diluted. Yeah. Not laundry detergent, not anything but straight bleach. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but really, really important. I mean, if you just have total coliform in your well, and for whatever reason you want to still use it, you boil your water, boil boiling does get the total coliform out. All right, so you, again, so maintaining your well. You know, we've had our well for 10 years and, you know, we've had good luck. We haven't had any problems, but well pumps do go out. Well casings do crack and break. Things do change just from the environment. So you want to make sure there's no cracks or leaks. You want to, again, make sure your wellhead is clear of the area. There's nothing around that can contaminate it. And then there, again, we have several contractors up here who are well professionals who know how to help you with problems and things like that. You don't want to have planting around your well. You just want to make sure that you keep that area clear, so nothing else can damage it. Now we do get, of course, up here some pretty frigid, pretty intense weather conditions. So you want to be aware of the fact that your well could freeze or have issues with weather. So make sure that if there are any exposed pipes, that they're insulated, that there's no cracks or gaps, and that there's proper drainage. And also, again, whenever there's a huge snow melt, that's a time where wells could become inundated. So that would be a good time in the spring or you know, times when the weather's changing rapidly to kind of think about your well and think about conditions that could cause problems with your well. And who is it? Somebody told me recently that somebody, in order to keep their pipes from freezing, run their dishwasher in the middle of the night. I thought that was a great suggestion. So you can set the timer on your dishwasher and have it go at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's the coldest at night, and that'll help keep the water flowing through your pipes. If you go out of town for a long period of time, of course, it's a good idea to leave just a drip open, leave so your pipes are moving so they're not freezing. So that's wells. Any questions about wells? Yes.
You suggested that testing at the wellhead might reveal contaminants.
It will,
And
it will have more bacteria at the wellhead than it would inside your house.
there's no treatment system between the wellhead and the pressure tank in your house.
There's no treatment system, you said? What I'm saying, because there's bacteria in the environment next to the wellhead. So if you're opening up your wellhead, you're going to get bacteria around that invading the sample. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
When you buy and sell a house, the lender requires a water test.
Mhm.
What is that?
Our test usually is acceptable to lenders. Yeah, the total coliform and E. coli. We did recently have a home sale where the lender thought that our test, it was interesting. They told the buyer or the seller that the test had to be done at the wellhead,
Yeah.
and we corrected them because they were wrong. The lender said, you know, was telling where the sample had to be taken from. We don't ever take samples from wellheads. What? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, we set it straight. Yes,
And it's just, FHA and VA.
that's all that require it now. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hold on.
Comment from the chat from Kelly. She's a former groundwater chemist for the state of Colorado, and she overhauled the groundwater one. She says heavy metals and water hardening minerals are the biggest concern. CDPHE offers more expensive testing for homeowners. Last time she looked, it was approximately $200. There are also labs around Colorado that can perform. Big deal to have at least on comprehensive tests for fraud.
She is right, although it's $107. You can tell her for the general Colorado package. Yeah, pardon? Oh, sorry, Kelly.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Apologies, Kelly.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so you can't, that's why I recommend that test. It's, you know, the state lab is less expensive than some of the private labs. There's a lab in Evergreen that's private, that's more expensive. And that's why I recommend the general Colorado package, because those are most of the contaminants. But yes, we do have a lot of mineral contaminants in our water here in Colorado. Other questions? I saw one or two more.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a
Sure.
question about annual testing. There are times a year, probably after runoff.
Yep.
Melt off, that town levels change.
Yep.
People do test this time of year, but think they're more stable. Is that, have you heard people doing that when they have concerns?
Not, well, people should always test if they have concerns, but I agree that spring is a great time to do that after the snow melt.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And the other great time, like I said, is if there's ever any earth moving, any construction, anything going on in the area. We don't have to worry, as we do in a lot of other areas, about fertilizers or industrial contaminants or pesticides like they do in a lot of other parts of the state. Yeah.
What about if the neighbors have enforcement?
Yeah, yeah, we've heard that concern. Typically, if the well is dug to the proper depth and it's sealed properly, I mean, we have so many moose in this county. If that kind of, animal feces was an issue, I think we'd have a lot more contaminated wells with E. coli. I think generally, nature is our friend and water is being filtered through the ground. So to get all the way from the surface into your well, even if it's a lot of horse poop, it shouldn't be that way if you have a good well. It shouldn't be a problem.
And how deep is deep enough? I mean, 100 feet, 500 feet?
200 feet is the minimum recommended. It's not always possible, right? Again, we're on fractured rock. So it's not that you couldn't have a good well at less depth than that, but 200 would be ideal, minimally 200. But we have a lot of more shallow wells in this county than that.
Mine's 800.
Good job. Yeah. Yeah, they probably had to dig that far to get to the water.
Yes.
Yes, that's the other thing too. So, if you're doing construction or you're buying land, it is really impossible to predict how far you're gonna have to go to get water in this county. Other questions about wells? What?
We're just trying to figure out, the slideshow isn't showing the online audience
Oh,
properly. That's why I've been playing around with it.
oh,
So we're
So you're
gonna
gonna
try one
restart it
more
again?
time.
it worked for yours though, huh?
Yeah, it's just for some reason it's working for the online. Okay. So give me 1 second here. This one. Right?
Yeah.
For some reason it's not even opening it. This one, yeah.
Yeah. Mabel. Yes.
Yeah.
Might need to. Sometimes things are usually looking at slideshow first and then we share, but no, that's true. Is that doing better, Michael?
Well, even if it shows that.
Let's see more.
Jen, it's working on mine.
It is. Okay. Sorry, everyone. I think we've got it now. So next we're going to talk about
On-site wastewater treatment systems, also known as septic systems. OWTS is the abbreviation we use in public health. Because saying on-site wastewater treatment systems is a lot, but most people know them as septic systems. So just like wells, most people in Gilpin County have a private on-site wastewater treatment system. And if you're like me, I never had one before I moved here 10 years ago. And they're very complicated, actually, systems, and you can't see them. So it's important to understand what you have on your property and what might go wrong with it and what you might need to do to help maintain it and keep it working properly. So most systems, this is a very simple system. All the wastewater from your home, that's including your shower water, any water that you use in your home, toilet water, bath water, shower water, is going to go from your home, from a pipe, into one or more tanks, depending on the size of your system. Septic tanks are sized and the systems are sized according to the number of bedrooms you have in your home. So if you put an addition on your home, you need to know if your septic system is sized properly to add, if you have add an extra bedroom. It may or may not be, and that may mean then you're out of compliance. So in Colorado, local public health departments regulate on-site wastewater treatment systems. We do that to protect the environment and to protect human health. Like I said, the major components are the one or more tanks, and then what's a drain field, also sometimes called a soil treatment area, because what's happening is the bacteria, not necessarily in soil in Gilpin County, because we don't have soil, right? We have rock, but we have other structures, usually sand, that can be added that help do that treatment. And this is an aerobic process, meaning it requires oxygen. So it requires the water to be flowing through these baffles properly, and then to settle down and to go through some kind of filtration system. So I'm actually gonna show you guys a video because I didn't think you wanted to hear me talk for a whole hour. And this video was done by another state health department, but it's a great explanation of septic systems, how they're designed and how they're maintained. So let's see if we can hear the volume of it. And I don't hear any sound. So that might be a technical issue that we need to overcome too. Uh-oh, might not work. You might have to listen to me. We'll see. Is the sound turned off? It might just have to be or because this looks like it's on. Is the sound off on here in this computer?
Protozoa and worms can all be present in
Now it's really loud. Sorry.
Dr. Michael.
Sorry. Let's see.
Hi there. Welcome to Septics 101. In this video, we're going to cover the basics of sewage and on-site septic systems. In the past, sewage was not treated, and the outhouses or cesspools that were used did not effectively remove pathogens, which are harmful disease-causing organisms. Bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and worms can all be present in domestic wastewater and septic systems, and can cause diseases such as hepatitis, cholera, diarrhea, and other gastrointestinal illnesses. In modern times, rules and regulations have been established on how to properly dispose of sewage. When not connected to a wastewater treatment facility or sewer, a home's best long-term option is a septic system. Clearly, it's important to make sure your septic system works properly. But first, you need to know how your system works. In this video, we'll look at sewage and its potential impacts on health and the environment. And we'll explore the different types of septic systems and how they work. We'll also talk about being a responsible septic system owner and how to care properly for a system, as well as how to detect a system failure and get help. This is all to maintain the health of your household for you and for your family, and protect the water quality as well as save you money. If you're completing this course for a certification program, there will be an exam at the end of the presentation. If you're looking to install a septic system, looking to purchase a home with a septic system, or simply wondering about your existing system, This video is for you. So what is sewage anyway? Sewage is all the wastewater that comes from your house, your toilet, your dishwasher and washing machine, sink and shower drains, and all the solids and waste that comes with it. Up to 50% of domestic sewage is created by your clothes washer and toilet. Your dishwasher produces 3%, while your bath, shower, and sink faucets produce the remaining percentage. All this wastewater exits your house and enters your septic system. By the way, rainwater, surface water, and groundwater are not considered sewage. When a septic system is designed, the designer and local government will base the size and type of the septic system on the number of bedrooms in the home and the physical features of the property. For design purposes, it is assumed that a bedroom can accommodate 2 people. If you have more people living in a house than the system was designed for, the system can become overloaded and fail. Site characteristics such as existing structures, slope, wells, streams, and other environmentally sensitive areas influence the system's design. What I have here looks like a handful of plain old dirt. But did you know there are typically 40 million bacterial cells in a single gram of soil? Healthy soil is living and breathing and jam-packed with microbes that break down pathogens. It's the key ingredient in treating wastewater from your septic system. Once it reaches the soil, pathogens from wastewater adhere to the soil particles and are broken down by microbes before it seeps into the groundwater. The type and amount of soil on a property is one of the most important things to consider in determining the design of a septic system. The soil test, once known as a PERT test, helps determine the type and depth of the soil on the property. The soil test usually involves digging out a test hole 6 feet deep and 3 feet wide with a backhoe. This will include a ramp so that the designer and sanitarian can safely enter the hole. In the test hole, they look at soil layers and soil types to determine absorption rate and will measure the vertical separation or depth to a restricted layer. This test hole, for example, shows some of the best soil at a very sufficient depth. Sometimes the test hole will reveal a restricted layer. In this case, the property has a high water table. The information gathered in the soil test will help the designer in designing a system that will meet the homeowner's needs and satisfy regulatory requirements. In determining the type of system, the concept of vertical separation is very important. Vertical separation refers to the depth of soil on the property between the bottom of a drain field and the top of a restricted layer of groundwater. You can think of this area of soil as the filter for pathogen removal. This distance will help determine the system type. Restrictive layer could be bedrock, groundwater, or an impermeable layer. It is the depth where water will no longer flow down through the soil and receive treatment. Look at the types of systems in use today. The most basic type of septic system permitted today for long-term use is the conventional gravity system. The gravity system consists of 3 parts: the septic tank, the drain field, and the soil beneath the drain field. In Washington state, the conventional gravity system requires a minimum of 3 feet of native, undisturbed soil beneath the drain field. As wastewater flows from the house into the septic tank through the inlet baffle, heavy solids settle to the sludge layer on the bottom of the tank. Lighter materials float to the top, forming the scum layer. The clear liquid in the middle is known as effluent. The effluent flows through the outlet baffle into the next component of the system. If your system does not already have one, consider installing an outlet baffle filter. These filters fit into the outlet baffle of your septic tank and add an extra barrier that prevents solids from moving into the drain field or other components. If you have a concrete baffle, you may want to hire someone to retrofit a plastic baffle in its place. Concrete baffles tend to degrade in septic tanks due to corrosive gases. And remember to clean your filter every 6 to 12 months. Typically, gravity systems will utilize a distribution box, or D-box, to equally distribute the effluent into each lateral pipe in the drain field. Equal distribution of the wastewater into each lateral is critical to the long-term operation of the drain field. Once the effluent reaches the laterals, it flows out of small holes and into the surrounding soil. where aerobic or oxygen-loving bacteria and other microbes treat the wastewater by removing pathogens. This treatment is critical in protecting groundwater and surface water resources. Here we can see a cross-section of the drain field. The perforated drain pipe sits on a level grade with gravel. The gravel provides a space for the effluent to move. Above the gravel is a fabric layer to keep the upper level of fine soil from moving down into the gravel. Here's an example of gravelless chambers used in place of rock and filter fabric. Pressurized systems may be used where sufficient soil is present, but the wastewater needs to be pumped to a certain area of the property.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Systems are also used when the soil type requires a specific dosing or when vertical separation is 2 to 3 feet. In Washington state, pressurized systems need at least 2 feet of vertical separation, 12 inches less than conventional because of how a pressurized system distributes the wastewater. Pressurized systems start with a septic tank, just like a gravity system. After the septic tank, the wastewater flows into a pump tank and it's pumped to the drain field, where it's spread equally throughout the drain field lines. The pump tank accepts wastewater from the septic tank through an inlet baffle. The pump itself is located on the floor of the tank. There are 2 floats used to control the pump, the on and off float and the redundant off float. If the wastewater level were to drop below the pump could overheat and burn up. The redundant off float prevents the pump from turning on if there is not adequate wastewater to cover the pump. The on-off flow turns the pump on as the wastewater level rises. The effluent is dosed every few hours and is spread out across the whole bottom of the trench. Some pumps operate on demand, while others use a timer to start a pump cycle. As the pump moves wastewater into the drain field, the level drops, dropping the float and turning off the pump, providing the soil with time to dry out between doses. The third and highest float is the alarm float. If the pump fails or too much wastewater enters the pump tank, the wastewater level rises and lifts the alarm float. This sounds an alarm on the control panel near the house. Push to silence it, and then call a licensed professional. The alarm is there to let you know there's a problem, so don't ignore it. Not all pump tanks utilize a float system. Some newer systems now use a transducer rather than on-off float. Most pump tanks have some built-in capacity to handle wastewater during power outages. The pump tank has many electrical components that should be serviced by a professional. Working with electricity around wastewater can be very dangerous. Now let's talk about alternative systems. First, the mound system. Mounds can be used where there is only 1 or 2 feet of suitable
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. We don't have
native
mounds.
soil.
Sorry.
Because additional vertical separation is built up in a mound.
So in Gilpin County, we don't have mound systems. We do have other types of systems which are called higher level treatment or mechanical systems. And those are very common. I'm gonna actually move forward to the next section of this. Hold on a moment. Yeah, so I'm just gonna stop there. So again, because we don't have much soil in Gilpin County, many times where contractors are bringing in sand, layers of sand, and that's what the water is percolating through and it has to be a certain grade of sand. And this is all by state law and Gilpin County regulations with state law. So the design of your system is very, very important. If you're putting in a new system, you want to make sure that you have a licensed septic engineer designing that system. Now, there are designers in Colorado that work under engineers, but every plan for a new or a replacement septic system has to be stamped by a licensed professional engineer in Colorado because there are so many considerations. You're talking about geology, you're talking about filtration, you're talking about slope, you're talking about the way the systems have to operate. And that is very individualized based on how much property you have, whether it's where your wellhead is, whether your neighbor's wellhead is, whether there's any kind of public water sources, streams or creeks going through your property, and that could change the way your system should be designed. So I don't think she talks about
1970s. Be careful of what might be in the ground.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna
talk about that, older systems. We do not have mound systems in our county.
So wastewater. A sand filter requires only 1.5 to 2.5 feet of suitable native soil. The wastewater is applied at the top of the sand filter and flows down through the sand and gravel, receiving treatment. Then the pre-treated wastewater flows either by pressure or gravity to a drain field for final treatment and dispersal. There are several proprietary systems for properties that do not have sufficient native soil depth. One type is an aerobic treatment unit, or ATU. Aerobic systems need a minimum of 12 to 18 inches of soil. A blower or aerator injects air into a tank, enhancing the aerobic microbial action. This type of system will often require some form of disinfection, such as chlorine or UV treatment, before the wastewater enters the drain field. ATUs are proprietary devices and are required by the manufacturer to be inspected at least once and sometimes twice a year by a manufacturer certified representative. Another type of proprietary system is the biofilter. Biofilters are designed and installed on properties where there is as little as 1 foot of suitable soil available. The manufacturer requires biofilter-approved professionals to design, install, and perform maintenance on these systems. Contact your local health department for more detail. So, in general, as the vertical separation decreases, the complexity of the system increases. So do the cost and maintenance requirements. Alternative systems cost thousands of dollars more than your basic system. Protect the system you have because replacement septic systems can be very expensive. For years, many different containers have been used as septic tanks. Many are single compartment. Many are no longer safe or effective. Metal tanks, for instance, suffer from corrosion, and the lids have been known to collapse. If you have an older system installed prior to the 1970s, be careful of what might be in the ground. Septic systems need regular maintenance, just like your car or your home. First of all, know where all the components of your system are located on your property. An as-built or record drawing is a technical diagram of your septic system. Check with your local health department to obtain a copy of your as-built. The record drawing can tell you what type of system you have, where the components are located on your property, and provide other useful information. Record drawings are not always accurate, so make sure you verify it's correct. If you need to have your system located, make sure you also know the location of all utilities. Depending on the type of system, you'll want to know the location of your septic tank, pump tank, sand filter, distribution box, and drain field. Let's talk about what you can do to protect and care for your system on a daily basis. Garbage disposals grind up unprocessed food into fine particles, which can clog components of your system, like pumps or even drain field pipes and soil. Use it sparingly. An alternative is to compost. Make sure you have an outlet baffle screen installed to help protect the drain field. Doing your laundry has a big impact on your septic system as well. Space out your laundry loads to allow your septic tank to settle properly. If water flows too rapidly through the septic tank, solid material will not separate and could move on to more sensitive parts of the system. Limit the use of bleach. Bleach kills the helpful microbes which treat the wastewater. Liquid fabric softener can seriously alter the chemistry within the septic tank, hindering proper treatment. Installing high-efficiency washers and toilets can increase your septic system's life and save you money. Do not throw garbage into your toilets or feminine products and wipes of any kind, even those that are flushable. Kitty litter and pet waste of any kind should never go into your septic system. Some cleaning products claim to be safe for septic systems. This may or may not be accurate. Look for cleaning products which use everyday ingredients such as vinegar and baking soda. If you do use strong cleaning products, just use less. Never put paint, thinners, or strong chemicals of any kind down your drains. Many areas have disposal services for dangerous or toxic material. To dispose of unused medicine, bag it up and throw it in the garbage. Check with your local health department or pharmacy to find out whether a drug take-back program is available in your area. Do not drain hot tubs and water softeners into your septic system. There's no need to waste your money on septic additives. Just use your septic system properly. Let's talk about how to protect your drain field. It's critical to protect your drain field and reserve area. The reserve area is a part of the property set aside in the event that the current drain field fails. Protect your drain field from motor vehicle traffic, parked vehicles, heavy loads, and livestock. Don't dig, use heavy fertilizer or weed killer on your drain field. Also, be sure not to build anything over your drain field. Protect your drain field by diverting surface or roof water runoff away from it. Look for shallow root plants. Contact your local nursery or health department for more information about what's safe to plant over septic systems. This tree was planted in a below-grade sand filter. The tree roots completely filled all the pipes in the sand filter and it had to be replaced. Your septic system requires routine maintenance. This includes inspection of all system components, pumping tanks, and cleaning filters when needed, and making sure repairs are performed. Risers increase accessibility to the system for you or a professional. They can also keep costs lower if a professional needs to service the system. If you do not have risers, you should have them installed. State regulations require that a complete evaluation be performed once every 3 years for gravity systems.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because that's specific to Michigan. Let me go to the next slide. So if you have a mechanical or higher level treatment system, you will, in the very near future, possibly be getting a letter from my office to tell you that you are required to have a maintenance contract on file as by state law. This is not something that we have taken the time in the past to enforce, but we are going to be beginning that enforcement. There'll be plenty of time to get that done. But the first thing is to know what kind of a system you have, if you have a mechanical system or not. And as she said in the video, because they're very complicated systems and they have many moving parts and pieces that could go wrong, they are required by the manufacturer to be checked either once or twice per year. And usually the installer who installed those systems know either they do the inspections or they work with an inspection company that knows how to inspect that specific type of system from that manufacturer. They have to be certified by that manufacturer to do that kind of maintenance. According to state law, we're not planning on levying fines anytime soon because we're just playing catch up now with those maintenance contracts. But there is something in state law that requires that. That's because they do often, if they're not maintained properly, fail, and you wouldn't know they failed many times. So this is just a review of what we already talked about. I don't think we need to go through that. But these are expensive systems, especially if they are the mechanical or higher level treatment systems. And so you want to protect that investment. So it's a wise investment to have a maintenance contract. They're somewhere between the average price usually is $200 to $300. That says $200 to $500, but it depends on the type of system you have to get it inspected and to have that contract, have them come out on a regular basis. We do have a lot of older systems in the county that may need to be replaced or maintained more properly. Everybody needs to have their septic system pumped, usually depending on the usage, every 2 to 3 years. Sometimes it could be 5 years if there's not many people in the house and not much usage. Depends on the system. And that's to remove that sludge layer. That sludge layer is not, it's just going to keep building up in that tank to the point where the system's not going to work anymore. So you do have to get your system pumped. And you need to, it's hard to know when it needs to be pumped. The best way to do it is to get a good professional, a good company that knows, and they will give you that recommendation based on the first pump. They'll say, hey, you probably should do this again in 2 years, or hey, you'd probably be good for 3 or 4 years. And that's based on how much sludge is there between that and the last time it got pumped. So really, really important, like she said, to not plant or park anything or you should know where your drain field is. My husband, again, we didn't have a septic system before, And he put in a fence, and he actually put a fence post through part of our drain field when we first moved in. So surprise, surprise, can't do that. There's a couple ways you can know if your system is failing. It's usually smell, but that's not enough from a legal point of view for us to say, you have a violation, your system is failing. We would see the effluent, the liquid, actually flowing up, and it would be like under normally dry conditions, your drain field would be mushy, and you would see that it's wet when the area around it is not wet. That's a failing system. Okay, so you need to look for that. Sometimes, again, it can happen temporarily if it's major snow melt, or somehow you washed 50 loads of laundry over 3 days. You could inundate your system, and then it could settle down again. But usually, if you've got smushy ground and water and wetness where there's not wetness anyplace else on your property and it's on your drain field, that's a sign of a failed system. So,
Does Gilpin do inspections for property?
well, yes. So that's the transfer of title program. So we don't do the inspections. The county requires the inspection per our regulations be done by a licensed professional before the property can be sold.
They go out and walk the system and make sure that.
Yeah. Yeah, they pump it, they have to pump it, and that's the way they can inspect it. And then, yes, they look for any signs of failure, any signs of any mechanical components that need to be replaced. You used to do that. Good for you. Yeah. Not all counties do that. So that's, yeah. So in regulation 43, which is the on-site wastewater treatment state law regulation that we follow, that we're required to follow, it's option for counties whether they're going to do a transfer of title program, and Gilpin has opted in for that, correct?
Didn't make me the bigger person.
No, doing those inspections. Yeah, because people don't want it. Yeah, it's expensive. If your system is not working, it needs to be fixed. So septic tanks can last a long time. Soil treatment areas, though, 25 to 30 years. So we have a lot of properties up here that are older than 30 years that may need a new soil treatment. And sometimes you cannot use the same area on your property. So if your soil treatment area is failed, meaning it doesn't do the aerobic work that it did, the only option is to find another area on your property to have a new soil treatment area. And sometimes that's a problem with smaller lots. So that's when you end up sometimes having to move from a traditional system, which is less expensive, to a mechanical system, which is going to be a lot more expensive, because now you have a smaller area and you have to do more treatment, more mechanical things to treat it, because you don't have the space to have as much soil treatment area. Usually cannot reuse the same one if it's failed. So.
What's the protocol for testing of older leach field?
Older what?
Distribution or filter field?
How do they test it?
Yeah, how can you teach a tree? How
I mean,
do
you
you
start
test
taking
the
all the
leach field?
field here. Possibility of damaging it, and that, I don't know.
Right. That's where you need a septic professional to get that advice for, are you saying if you already damaged your field, how do you fix it?
I'm asking if you initially tested to see the condition of it.
Oh, okay. So you're saying whether you can put whether you can put it where you can put it on your property?
You have an existing one.
Okay.
Aging.
Uh-huh.
How do you know what is the test protocol to determine whether it's still functional or it's failing when it's all buried?
Yeah. So that's what I was talking about. So if you see surfacing of the effluent, which will be wetness on the ground when there's no wetness anyplace else on your property and it's only wet there, that's the sign of a failed system. That's one of the signs.
But there's not a test protocol when they dig it up. Somebody comes to dig it up and test it.
No, I mean,
There's not an absorption rate test.
no.
Okay.
No. Yeah, what they're typically testing is if, of course, they're testing if any of the mechanical components have failed. A lot of them have alarms on them, and there's floats, and they're replacing sometimes individual components. They might replace a filter or a baffle. Things like those individual parts can fail. But as far as a whole system failing, it's mushy ground. Yeah. Yes.
On new construction, can you still build the old plastic basic system, or in Gilpin, are you required to do the mechanical?
No, if you have the room to have a proper soil treatment area, and it depends on how many bedrooms you have, how big that needs to be. If you have the space and it's not close to a neighbor's well or a public water source. So we have a 200-foot setback rule for any neighboring wells, your well, any neighboring wells, or any creeks or rivers, any public water source. You have to have that 200-foot separation. If you can't make that, then you can reduce that by having a higher level treatment system in.
I have a few questions on this,
Sure.
because that's why I'm here.
Okay.
How does Gilpin County allowing the over occupancy of these STRs?
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with septic. That's our building department, so I can't answer that.
That has to be, the occupancy of a STR.
Yeah.
Has to do with how many bedrooms that septic sleeps.
Right.
When Gilpin County knows this, like some of these people are advertising 8 people in a 2-bedroom house.
Right.
I have 2 of these within a stone's throw. One of them, you guys know that is over occupancy. It was illegally tied into an ADU, but you're still allowing the over occupancy of an STR.
Right. So short.
I disagree with this. To get an STR permit, you have to show all of your OWTS paperwork, that it is sufficient for the number of people, and so on. So I don't think the county is looking past anything like that. I went through that process last year. That's my comment.
That is next to me that was illegally tied into an ADU. That STR has a 3-bedroom. It should only be allowed 6 people, but being illegally tied into the ADU, technically it should only allow 4 people in that STR. I also have another STR up the hill from me that is 8 people in a 1-bath house. And it's 2-bedroom, 8 people in a 2-bedroom house.
So I'm Gilpin County Public Health. I do not regulate short-term rentals at all. I regulate septic systems according to state law, and we do that based on bedroom count. So I know, I've seen your emails.
Yeah.
I know that these things are being investigated by our community development department and our legal department.
It's been like 3 years. And also, you guys want to come up here. This also contains to our water, our clean water.
Right.
When these things overflow, this goes into our water.
Right. Right.
There's
So
so much of that.
if there's evidence of them overflowing and we receive a credible report, we will go out and investigate. That's our job.
Yeah, but I mean, it's already.
That's my department's job.
Yeah.
So if somebody tells me that, we do get neighbors tell us, I think my neighbor's septic system is failing. We can't do it now because it's winter, right? But when the conditions are right, we will send an inspector out and look to see if they have a failing system. We will always do that.
But how can, the other question is, how do you allow this over occupancy? You guys can go through these STRs on Airbnb. You can see that some of these people are advertising way over
Right.
occupancy.
Again, I understand your concern, and I think that we've heard you, and I think that those things are currently being investigated. Apologize if it's been going on for 3 years. We have had new leadership here at the county in the last 3 years, and we have new department heads. Both my department and our community development department has very responsible department heads, and we do investigate all issues and complaints. So you got to be a little bit more patient. It is in process.
Good.
Thank you, though.
Well,
I know.
Biding
I
my
know.
time here.
I know.
I'm being very patient.
I know you have. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Kim in the Zoom is asking how far the recommendation is to space out loads of laundry.
There's no exact formula for that. You can do a couple of loads of laundry a day. I'm sure it depends on the size of your system. If you've got, a tiny cabin, that's a system that's only sized for 1 or 2 bedrooms, you're going to want to do laundry more spaced out than if you have a big house with 4 bedrooms and a larger system. That's just the way to gauge it. It's not like an immediate problem. Most systems can handle several loads of laundry a day. You just, you don't want to be doing 30 loads of laundry over 2 or 3 days. You just want to be excessive. Yeah.
And one more question.
Yeah.
You said that they're will a homeowner be able to, do his own? Or will you have to?
Do their own septic
Do
system?
their own inspection on their own septic, or will it have to be hired?
Well, it depends on the type of system you have. So some systems you have to be certified by the manufacturer to do that system. And you could, as a homeowner, get certified by the manufacturer of your system to do your own inspection.
Because
That is possible.
But I'm pretty
You installed it?
educated. I installed one.
You installed your own. So if you know the type of system you have, if the manufacturer requires certification, yes, you could go get that certification and show us you're certified to do it and do your own inspection. Yes, you could. But you have to be certified. Other questions about septic? Yeah.
Is there a wide variety of those enhanced systems for the?
There's about wide variety. There's about 3 or 4 manufacturers that are currently in wide use of those higher level treatment systems. I'd say about 4 basic types of systems that I'm aware of.
Does it meet some kind of certification requirement to
Yes.
be installed in?
They're by the state. So the state of Colorado certifies which systems can be used in Colorado.
Okay, so Uber moved in from wherever can put out a shingle and say he installed some kind of enhanced system.
No.
Regularly.
Yes. All of our contractors have to pass an exam. They have to be licensed. They have to be certified, and they're required to do continuing education. And they have to be certified for that system.
And that system, the inspectors
Yes,
need to be tied to that system, correct?
correct. Most inspectors can inspect the 3 or 4 most
Okay.
common systems. Yeah, most of them are certified.
And then you did mention something else about, designing septic systems. And you could be, certified or licensed engineer to approve one or design one.
Yeah,
It's not specific that people that specialize in septic system design.
no, so you have to be a licensed professional engineer and have an engineer, stamp, an engineered stamp. But there's not a subset of engineers, unfortunately, that call themselves septic engineers. Yeah, it can be any. Yeah, that happens, and that is true, right? And then we have people that are designers, and they're actually not licensed separately, but are required to work under the stamp of a licensed professional engineer. So you do have to be careful of who you hire to design and install your system. Yes.
Does Gilpin County still allow for gray water to be spewed out on the ground?
No.
That's good to know, because up until not very long ago, that was allowed. You only had to do your black, basically, your gray water could go right. I know probably 3 properties in the county that still practice.
Okay, yeah, no, gray water is considered wastewater, not, rainwater is different, right? Like they said in the video, but gray water, if it's coming from your house, it's wastewater. It's treated the same. Okay.
Okay, so lastly, we have a demonstration in the back to kind of tie the well and septic discussion together. So I'm gonna switch the video over for the online folks, and then for the in-person folks, whenever you're ready, you can get up and stand around the demonstration, and we'll talk about it in the back of the room.
Oh, cool.
So the
Thanks,
folks
Jen.
online, let's just hang tight for a minute while we switch the videos.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
That's okay.
So I gather from what you have said, you guys have presented, is that the well is new.
Your well is new?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It has